Hello and welcome to Odessa. This is Lewis Nichols, your guide for Dresden's Tale. This is Chapter 3, Episode 4, and this is the show where we follow Dresden Fane, a dwarven warlock making his way through a dark and dangerous world. When we left off, he had just made his crossing over to the desert plain of Odessa. That's where he is now. And we're going to pick that story up in just a moment. But first, I want to make kind of a station announcement. I want to give you an idea of how this is all coming together, because what you're going to see is a couple of episodes every week, hopefully, if I can stick to a good schedule, coming up. And, of course, you don't know how I've recorded them. And in truth, what I've done is gotten all my Dresden's Tale episodes pre-recorded, so there's no way I can respond to any of your comments or suggestions. In addition to that, for the companion episode, Nuts and Bolts, I've gotten quite a few episodes pre-recorded, some general stuff for you. I wanted to have that all ready to go before I got onto any kind of publication schedule, so a little thing wouldn't throw me off. And the last thing we want to do is put up an episode and then you have to wait a month for another one. There is also a third companion episode, though I haven't recorded any of those. It's a series called How We Got Here, and it's going to be more of an about the author type piece. And the reason I haven't recorded any is I'm just not in a hurry to do that, because I think that is where I'm going to respond to a lot of the comments. Of course, comments and such can also be addressed on episodes of Nuts and Bolts. That's why I don't want to have a full season recorded there either. So that said, I'm going to assume that 3 or 4 weeks in here, I've got maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 subscribers that are listening, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you're enjoying the series. And now it is time for Chapter 3. It is the 3rd day of Ut, 2051 years after the fall. So Dresden, despite all of his eagerness, he's not having the greatest of times. He would, at this point, sum up Odessa in 3 words: hot, dry, and dull. There's no hills or mountains to break up the skyline. The sky is a constant, light blue during the day. Any clouds that might try to come along or almost instantly disappear. He's not even really sure it ever rains here, even though some of the people that have been around for a while will mention that it does in fact rain. Maybe once a year, maybe twice on a wet year. There's not really much in the way to look at. No trees, few scrub bushes here and there. So at this point, he's pretty disappointed with his adventure. So as he trudges along, he takes a big swig out of his canteen and takes another look. He's heard about interesting landscapes here on Odessa, but where he's at, it's not sand dunes. It's just packed dirt. There's no interesting rock outcroppings. Instead, it's just bushes and shrubs, and that's pretty much the extent of it. Each grouping is one plant, someone told him about the shrubs. The roots join up underground and go deep enough to hit water. I have a cousin who has a friend that's in a paramilitia who they found a cave that they followed all the way to an underground river that emptied into a whole underground ocean. Dresden stopped listening somewhere after the cousin who had a friend. All his fellow rookies wanted to do was talk. Instead, he tried to model his behavior after the veterans. After a month around the gate area doing all kinds of little dirty jobs, Dresden has found himself with a caravan. It's a fairly large caravan, about 20 big wagons and 100 escorts, almost 200 total people if you include all the teamsters and the people caring for the animals. For the most part, Dresden has tried to stick to himself. He's not quite sure he's ready to make too many new friends yet, especially when all they want to do is jabber. "What's your trade, Fane?" Merlin asked him for the second time. Dresden didn't hear him the first time because he'd managed to shut everybody out. He was Gailic, same as Hongus back home, a tall, dark-skinned man with straight black hair. This guy talked a lot more than Hongus did, and Dresden didn't see any chance of a friendship really developing. He had a array of amateurish tattoos covering his skin, something pretty common among the Kelds, but Dresden thought it was a mistake. He was covering himself up with shoddy work before he really had anything to brag about. Most warriors used tattoos to mark victories and big campaigns they had fought in. Dresden's only markings were a house brand on his shoulder and the Stone Clan emblem on his forehead. "Wood," another warrior answered. "His trade is wood. I can see he's got woodworking tools on his belt. He's a woodworker." Drail was a saurian, as tall as Merlin and easily twice as heavy. The big reptile moved on two legs with a big, long, dangerous-looking tail as a counterbalance. Dresden kind of thought all saurians looked the same, but big and gray, hairless body, reddish markings around the neck. He seemed very happy with himself to be able to figure out Dresden's trade. "Ah, I do stonework myself," Merlin went on as if Dresden had been the one to answer. "Are you any good?" What kind of question is that? Dresden thought to himself, "Am I any good?" "I'm all right," he grumbled. "Ha! I bet you are," the human hollered loudly for no good reason. "I bet he is," Drell echoed. Dresden thought the whole march was becoming a nightmare. "High Priest of Lorne's house, how awesome would that be? I bet they expect a lot of you, don't they?" Merlin went on and on. The dwarf knew he was lucky to be in a big house, but by the same token, it wasn't always everything it was cracked up to be. He had gotten expensive training in Ziblich. He'd learned the Machtikal glyph, to allow him to transport himself and others long distances. But that was also a curse, that many people that learned that kind of magic got turned into messengers and gophers and, take me here, take me there. Dresden tried to avoid that by not bragging about being a warlock. "I myself am a Whedon." Merlin was completely undeterred by Dresden's disinterest. "We have contacts with several of the large work gangs to cut their meat. Have you ever thought about being a butcher? Great deal of artistry in that job." Dresden looked anywhere but at the large man. Most of the guards were on foot, moving next to the ox carts. Dresden thought of them as rattle traps, much like the warriors he accompanied. They were big, 14 feet long, 6 feet wide. They'd never fit through one of the gates. They had been captured from the Hessians back during the war, the people who used to occupy this part of Odessa. Now, Dresden became aware that Merlin had actually quit talking. He looked up at the man. His face was locked into an odd expression of shock or maybe horror. The soft-jawed, wild-eyed faces that humans made sometimes amused Dresden. Then, from Dresden's right, a humanoid creature bowled right into the man, driving him into the wagon. Dresden reacted slowly, but drew his saber and moved to help. Slashing wildly, had a sensation that he could only describe as vibrant. He stumbled to his right, attempting to alter his profile against the creature. It was the first time he'd gotten to use that little trick someone had taught him. He found it somehow added to his completely misplaced sense of peace. He felt like the battle was some forbidden dance that he'd finally gotten invited to. He was pretty sure the creature was a sand mummy. He didn't really know anything about him, about those creatures. It was a humanoid wrapped in cloth. It was dirty, dusty, blended in with the background. It didn't take long for the rest of their companions to get there, but the beast was completely focused on Merle, bludgeoning him well beyond his ability to fight back. The first blow had stunned the tall man and forced him to expel the contents of his stomach into the sand mummy, but the creature didn't seem to care. The second blow broke his nose. The next 5 left the mummy's cloth-covered hands stained red. Merle wasn't going to do much more talking, not with his teeth scattered, parts of his jaw strewn across the ground. After the fight, they buried the man off to the side of the road and marked his grave. He wouldn't be the only one to fill up that little graveyard that was started that day. The long road was well traveled, and there were many, many threats along the way. And that's where we're going to leave off for today, the conclusion of Chapter 3. Dresden suddenly is feeling pretty good about himself. He survived his first real fight. Probably more, definitely more luck than skill. But, he hit a monster. He didn't run away. So he feels pretty stoked. Next time, we're going to continue Dresden's adventures on Odessa. Maybe he'll actually make some friends and open up a little bit on his adventure. We'll just have to see. I want to thank you all very much for joining me. You could have done anything with this time, but you chose to join me on this campaign into the unknown. I'd appreciate it if you could do all the extra stuff, the likes, the shares. If you would like to support this channel, then you can become a member. You can also join me on Patreon, and for station updates, you can follow me on Twitter as well. Kind of rounding things out, talking about what we did earlier. There are station updates. Who knows? By now, I might even be, recording new episodes in response to questions, and probably working on the next season by now. And so, until next time, I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful day, and thank you very much.